Alright guys, we are going to do a video today. This is going to be setting up this start menu I've made. I've got my background and I've got my text. I've got those inside of folders here, sprites, background, and there's my jump dust background. And then I've got the big text for my name, jump dust. And we're going to be setting up this together. So we're going to start fresh. This is what we're going to be shooting for, something that looks exactly like this. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So here we go. Alright, so you should already have your pictures put into the right folder, so we're going to assume that you've already got that correct. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do new scene, so create a brand new scene. So you should be somewhere like this, and I'm going to do a user interface node, and I'm going to call this one start_menu, and I'm going to save this, so file, save scene as, and I'm going to put this in the scenes folder, and I'm just going to leave it called start menu. And I'm going to hit save. Alright, we've got this saved for the first time. Alright, now there's nothing here. There's nothing here, but I'm going to go ahead and explain some of this stuff to you so you guys can maybe have a better idea of what's happening and why we're doing some of this stuff. Okay, we're using the green nodes this time. They're called control nodes. When you're using control nodes, those are used for like menu options or inventories and things like that inside of your game. So that's what the green ones are for. So I know you guys, this is probably one of your first times to start messing with it, so we'll get a little bit of feel for it. For the first box that we're going to add inside of here, we're going to click on the plus sign, and we're going to add a margin container. Looks just like that. It says margin container, and the description says a simple margin container. So I'm going to hit create, and this is going to basically give us an like anytime you add something inside of a margin container, it's going to try and fit it inside of the area that you have suggested it to use. And right now the margin is just in this top corner. We want to adjust the margin to fill up the screen here. And this is called the rectangle. This is the full rectangle, so that's what we want to fill up this green area. So click on margin container, and up in the top right you're going to click on layout, and I want you to choose full rect, and that's going to change the dimensions here, and you're going to see that those little anchors, the little green points at the edges here, they're now at the very corners of where your viewport is. Now when we put something inside of this, it's going to try to constrain it or keep it inside of these bounds, and the bounds for this one are going to be the entire screen. And the reason we want to use this green node is because it will adjust its size based upon what device or what kind of screen size that you're using. So basically this is making it where it will work, your game will work on a large screen, and it will also work on a small screen like a phone. So it can work on a big TV or a medium-sized computer monitor or maybe even a small phone. If you don't use these green margin containers and stuff like that, it's going to look weird if you create it for one certain size and it's not able to adjust the size properly. So this is going to help us adjust size properly. So click on margin container, hit the plus sign, and go to texture rect. This is a control node for pictures or sprites, basically. So texture rect, and you're going to hit create. Now we're going to go ahead and drop in our first picture. So go to your sprites, and grab your background that you've created. Mine is jump dust background here. And just like you normally put in a sprite, you drop it into the texture folder or spot, you're going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to drag and drop this texture in. Now you can see that the picture is not exactly the size of our entire screen, but we can fix that. Over here on the side, there's a bunch of things to choose from. You can flip the direction of your picture. You can flip it vertically, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to click the button that says expand, and when we do that, it's going to take our image and it's going to fill it to the size of that margin container. All right. So one thing that you don't want to do when you're creating a menu is you don't want to just click and drag and drop stuff where it needs to go. You want to make sure you're building a series of containers that will automatically fill up the space that it has. So that's what we're going to be using. These are called flags right here. We've pretty much toggled the flag that says expand, and that tells our picture to expand and fill this area. All right, now I want to add at the top my text for my name of my game, for the name of my game, and then at the bottom is where I want my buttons. And your game might be different. You may have drawn your picture a little bit different and you want your buttons in a different place. There's 100 different ways to do this, so if you decide you want to do it in a different fashion, then you can do that, but you can use this as an example of how to do it. Okay, so click on margin container, and I want you to add another margin container. I think that's what I did. If I mess up, you guys get to learn with me, I guess. So we're going to add another margin container. And then, actually, you know what? I think this is supposed to be a horizontal. Here, let's do it again. So click on delete what you just made if you made it. Click plus and add a vertical box container. Yeah, that's what we want to do. Okay, VBox container. So you can think of this as like a bunch of different, so like inside of this margin, we put a vertical container that can hold boxes and stacks them vertically. There's also a horizontal one which stacks them left and right, kind of like a loaf of bread. This one is like a pancake stack. And on the very top of our pancake, the pancake that's at the very top, we want that to be the name of our game. So we're going to, inside of this VBox container, we're going to add another texture rect. And this is going to be our game name. I need to also start naming these. So I could call this title. So there's our title. And then this one right here, this texture rect, that would be our background. Background. And here's where we're going to drag and drop the name of our game in here. So I'm going to go to my big text folder. And I already know which one works for me, and that is this one here. I've already played with this a little bit, but if you wanted, you could take the title and you could drag and drop in, and I'm dropping in the one I think needs to be bigger. So I dragged and dropped in the text, and I kind of wanted a little larger than that. So I also saved a couple different sizes here. So I could drag and drop in the 160 size, so it's a little bit bigger, and that's the size that I want. Okay, now you'll notice that my words are off to the left. That's not going to work for me. I want to center it up. And I don't just want to grab it and move it and center it. I need to center it up with some of these buttons over here. So if you'll come over here to the side and click on size flags, and you'll see ones for horizontal. We need to adjust the position of the text horizontally. I'm going to deselect fill, and I'm going to select shrink and center. And that's going to center it up for me right there. All right. Now I need to add another pancake layer. So my first pancake layer happens to be the title, which is right there, so that's good. And I want to add another one, so I'm going to click the plus sign, and this time I'm going to add an VBox container. So there's that. So I'm going to call this middle row, and then I'm going to add, inside of this, I'm going to add some buttons because I want to be able to click the buttons to start and quit. So I'm going to click inside of my middle row, and I'm going to add a button. There it is. It says button right there. So I'm going to click create. And this first button, I'm going to call it my start button. And I renamed it start, but you don't see any text filling that up. We can fix that. Over here on the right hand side, it says text, and it's got a little open box. Type start, and you'll see that it starts to fill in the words here. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to click on rect. That's going to be the size of this start button. And I want the size of my start button. I don't want it to be that small. I want it to be bigger. And you'll see size and minimum size. I'm going to set a minimum size for my button. So I'm going to say 160 by 60. So now my button's a little bit bigger. And I think we can even adjust things like font size and stuff like that, but we're gonna leave it real simple to start with. I set a minimum size for my button, and it says start, and I need another button now for quit because we want to start the game and we want to quit the whole game too. So click on your start button over here, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to say duplicate. Now you'll notice now I've got two start buttons, but I don't want the second one to also be a start. I want the second one to be the quit button. So I'm going to change what the text says, and I'm going to rename it here. So I'm going to say quit. And then I'm going to come over here to the text. This is going to be my quit button. So I have a start button and I have a quit button, but they're not really centered up where I want them. I need them to move like over. Like I want to center them up and then maybe even move them down here. So let's see if we can figure out how to do that. So remember how I was telling you these are our pancakes here? This first pancake is at the very top. You can kind of see right there. Then I have a middle row, and I might even want a bottom row here too. So maybe I can add another row. But let's see how if we can get these centered up before we do any of that. So I'm selected on middle row, and I'm going to come over here to size flags. And I don't want to fill anymore, so I'm going to turn off this fill. And I'm going to say shrink and center. So now it's in the middle part. But I also want to put this down at the bottom. So let's see if we can mess with this vertical over here. So instead of filling, can we shrink to the end? No, that doesn't do it. Nope, that doesn't do it. Alright, so we'll leave this guy alone. Let's see if we can figure out a way to make this move down. So we have the title on the top. We have a middle section. I want to add another middle row, or another row, and I'm going to change this from middle row. I'm going to say last row. Last row of buttons. So I changed the name, and I'm going to add another row. So I got my first pancake, second pancake. I'm going to add another one. So I'm going to hit the plus sign, and I want to add another VBox container. So I have a top, middle, and bottom, but I want this one to be the last one. So if you like right click on them, you can tell them where you want them to go. You can move them up and down. So if you'll put them in this order, so now you can see I've got a middle row, and I'm going to rename this one middle row here like that. And all we need to do is make this middle row larger until it pushes my buttons down to where I want them. So I'm going to click on middle row, and I'm going to come to rectangle, and this size here, I'm going to add a minimum Y size until I get to where I want. So let's see what 200 looks like. Nope, let's do 300. That looks pretty good. All right, so now, I don't know, maybe 325. There we go. So now my middle row, it takes up this space right here in the middle. And my last row takes up that bottom spot, and the title takes up that spot. Looks good. Now, I can leave the buttons just like they are, but I want to kind of separate them apart just a little bit so I can see the center of that table leg. So I'm going to click on the bottom one here, and I am going to look for custom constants, and it says separation. I'm going to click on that, and then if I turn it up, you'll notice that the boxes separate from each other, and they will move apart until I like it. 200. Let's do something like that. Now, this allows you to add more. You can add more buttons later. Like, you could probably put a button here and a button here if you wanted, or you could add multiple menus, but we're just going for the simplest design to start with. We've got a background, the name, and 2 buttons, start and quit. So that's going to be the end of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and save my scene. Just do Control S. That saves it. And I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to reopen it and see what happens just to make sure that I'm still good. Start menu. And there it is. There's our start menu. If I push play, I've got my start menu here. Start doesn't do anything yet because we haven't programmed it, and quit doesn't do anything yet because we haven't programmed it, but it's done. Alright, see you guys in the next video.